So here we have a 3-hour relationship drama. It's in French, it's art house, so you're reading subtitles the whole time. Who would want to see this movie? Well, just about every guy on the planet. I'm talking, of course, about Blue is the Warmest Color. It's directed by Abdelatif Kechiche, I think. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. And starring Léa Seydoux and Adele Exarchopoulos. I'm not French. I was fortunate to be able to see. I live an hour away from where it was showing, so yay me, I got to go see it. And I was very much looking forward to this movie. Now, my biggest question walking out of this movie was, why? What was the point? I was wondering what the director's goal was with this movie, and I guess it's just because there's no big plot in this movie. It's a character study, and I guess just it's really simple. Basically, what this movie is about is this young girl still in high school who discovers herself and her sexuality and finds her first true love. And it's, you know, like a learning lesson for her. It's a coming-of-age story. And this relationship is with a woman. So this is a lesbian relationship drama. Blue is the Warmest Color turned out to be one of those movies that I just don't have a solid opinion on. Seeing it for the first time, I liked it, but that's, you know, just kind of saying I didn't not like it, and I didn't love it. It wasn't even just okay. It was just, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like an experience, like watching something unfold. It's not, and you get attached to these characters. It's not a traditional movie. Immediately after seeing it, I didn't know quite what to think of it, but now I'm thinking I'm starting to appreciate it more, and I'm starting to really come around to it, and I actually really want to see it again. But anyway, let's get into Blue is the Warmest Color. This movie has received a lot of controversy due to behind the scenes what was going on during the production. The two stars, or at least one of them, Léa Seydoux, has been in Seydoux, I don't know, has been in some American movies, but a lot of French movies too. She's been in *Inglourious Basterds*, *Mission Impossible*, *Ghost Protocol*, *Midnight in Paris*, and the two stars have spoken out about the conditions and also just the content in the movie. Like, the sex scenes in this movie are very explicit, probably the most erotic and explicit scenes I've ever seen in a movie, at least way up there, maybe the most you've ever seen, and at least one of them runs fairly long, so those of course have gotten people talking, and I mean, you gotta expect it. It's a bigger deal in America than it is over in France and Europe. But I have to commend the director because he did a very good job with this movie, at least what he was trying to go for, I think. The movie just feels like life. Like, it feels realistic, it feels just natural, like you're just kind of going through the motions. It feels like in the moment, intimate, and raw. That's the best way to describe it, and therefore you get a lot of emotion out of this story and these two characters. And of course, the two lead actresses, Léa Seydoux and Adele Exarchopoulos, especially her, the latter, she's like 19, I think, when she made this movie. Both are incredible. Easily two of the best performances of the year. They do a tremendous job. They just give it their all. They're very emotional in this movie. They're in kind of, I think more Adele is in more of a vulnerable spot, but it's just, wow. Like, they did a tremendous job, and I think they should get Oscar consideration. They're not wearing any makeup like the whole time, and it's like, you know, it makes it feel more real and natural. Like, Adele in particular is just beautiful in this movie, and you really get attached to her, and the director makes sure to get some kind of quirks and nuances in there. And in particular, she has this little habit of like eating like kind of with her mouth open almost. It's a little unflattering, but again, there's a lot of touches like that that make these characters more human, and it's a very human story. I mean, a lot of people are saying this is like one of the best love stories ever. I don't know if I go that far, but for what it is trying to do, it's done very well. There's also a lot of close-ups throughout the movie, again, to capture like the details of their faces more, and like just every little ounce of emotion, and it works. I'm not a big fan of a lot of close-ups in normal movies, but this isn't a normal movie. I understand what the director's trying to do, and it works. And also, just another thing I noticed, there's no cell phones, I think, in this movie. They don't ever really use their cell phones, which, thank goodness, because like, for once, I mean, come on, we don't need an iPhone in every movie, you know, like, it keeps the movie from being dated. I believe there wasn't any music in the movie, like no score. There was some French songs and even one American song, but other than those scenes, I don't think so. So a lot of the movie was silent. Again, you don't have a score accompanying you in real life, so this movie, realism. There are many points in this movie, like, if you can get into foreign films, because a lot of people can't. They have trouble reading subtitles. I'm not one of those people. I actually prefer to see the movie without a dub, if you know what I mean. Like some movies, I'm not that lazy. It depends on the movie, obviously, but for most, especially art house movies, I want to see it, in its original language. And if you can get past that, if you're a more open-minded film buff, then I think you will be in for a treat. Just the dialogue in this movie. There's several scenes of dialogue that just felt, again, natural, and I got sucked into it, and the subtitles didn't even faze me at all. It was just like, I was really into it. There's one scene in particular I'll just mention in case you do see the movie, you'll recognize it. It's when Adele is at a party. She's talking to this guy who's been in, like, action movies and stuff in the United States. It's just one little moment I noticed while watching that I was like, wow, I'm really getting into this. Like, it was very naturalistic dialogue. But, in my opinion, Blue is the Warmest Color is not without its flaws. Okay, the 3-hour running time. This movie, I did not think needed to be 3 hours long. This is supposed to be like an epic romance. That's a little weird to say, but like the movie is an epic length. I think there were just several scenes, at least while watching on the first time, that did not seem to have any purpose. Like there was parts where it showed like what Adele's career choice was. It's like I don't know if I needed to see that. I mean, like maybe once or twice, yeah, but they showed it a number of times, and there were other points too. I mean, maybe they added to just like the everyday life kind of aspect of the movie, but there was a lot of moments that could have been just like shorter. Like a lot of shots could have been shorter. I think this movie could have been tightened a little bit. It didn't need to be this long. And then also, I'll bring it up, but the sex scenes in this movie, of course, I mentioned, are very graphic. You see quite a bit. And I don't know if at least the main one needed to be as long as it did. The first big sex scene. I mean, of course, I was enjoying what I was watching, but, that's, in the context of the film, in the story, I don't know if it needed to be quite that long. It seemed like it was getting a little too much. At least with maybe just all of them in particular, at least one or two, I would have liked them to kind of ease into one or ease out of one, just kind of build up to it or slowly exit one, like just them talking and stuff. I didn't mind that with one of the later ones because there was some dialogue going on. But yeah, like a lot of them just seem to kind of pop up and they feel a little out of context and they don't feel maybe as emotional or passionate as maybe they could have been. But, I'm going too deep into that. Like, they're still tastefully done, I'd say. Like, it was a little shocking at first for being an American audience member, maybe compared to over in Europe, but they were. I kind of wanted this movie to examine a relationship from beginning to end and all the things in between, and this movie isn't quite that, but I don't know if it was intended to be. It examines a relationship intimately, like you're a voyeur looking at these two people's lives. I was very interested in the first hour, maybe the last 20-30 minutes. Those were the most interesting parts to me. Otherwise, in the middle, at times, it kind of felt, I felt the length. It became a little slower. Because of that time span that it takes place over, which is supposed to be like a decade, I've heard, but it feels like maybe a few years. I can't even tell. Because the passage of time in this movie is a little hard to gauge, but I'm glad they didn't use subtitles because that would have made it feel more like documentary-like, and I'm not as into that. So I'm glad they did that, but it still is a little tricky to gauge how much time has passed. Visually, this is a gorgeous film to look at. I saw online that someone compared it to the works of Truffaut or Godard, and it's an interesting angle to look at. Seeing it as kind of a French New Wave film. Blue is the Warmest Color is a film that won't leave your mind soon after viewing. It stays with you. It's emotionally powerful. It's just an interesting look at love, and it has interesting things to say. I did notice, like, in particular, like, aspects that I wanted to explore. Like, I got that sense, like, at the very end of the movie, like, it had interesting things to say. So, I still would recommend it for any film buffs out there. You just got to keep an open mind what kind of film this is. It's obviously not for everyone. It earns its NC-17 rating. It's 3 hours. It's in French, so it has a very select audience. But I think I'm gonna have to like research it and maybe look at other people's discussions online and look into this film. It's a good film to study, and I do want to rewatch it and reevaluate it. I think it's kind of growing on me. If you're curious, go for it. I say it's a great movie. Check it out.